everyone, Kat here, and we are back on Fairy Tail. I know a lot of you might have been worried because we didn't post Fairy Tail content for the past couple days, but don't worry, we have not abandoned the deck. In fact, after hitting top 10, I decided to take the deck back on ladder to see if we could push to top 1. And you wouldn't believe we lost like 40 coin tosses in a row, like 40, I'm not joking, and dropped about 100 rating points. But that just gives us a goal to strive towards for Fairy Tail for the rest of this month, and you know what? That's fine by me. I also wanted to talk today about the Fairy Tail Mirror, because we ended up playing a bunch of games of that. This is becoming a lot more prevalent on ladder. I think people generally have started to come around on this deck and think that it is actually a genuine meta threat, and I definitely agree, as you can tell from our content for the past month. I'm not going to say I had a hand in the wave of Fairy Tail players. Maybe that's still too self-aggrandizing. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mirror because I think it's one of the more interesting mirrors that exists in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the Teller of Fairy Tales, which needs to be made with the Light Fairy +1 spellcaster. Already, when you try to fuse with your opponent's field and you use Tails, you need the opponent's monster to be a spellcaster, and so the spellcaster matchups tend to be pretty swingy for Fairy Tail. But when both people are on Fairy Tail, it becomes very funny because any Teller of Fairy Tales, anyone who becomes a Prince of Fairies, can be Teller fodder, which means that you can even fuse off with your own Prince of Fairies if they make a Prince of Fairies on your side of the field. So that matchup ends up being a little bit silly, and Fairy Tail has a lot of ways to push through the Fairy Tail end board. Luna, for example, tends to eat 2 negates. If they try to negate her search, she can bounce a different Omni, and then that either forces out the second Omni or, you know, some other play, which is really, really nice. Match Giru, even if you stop her once, can then turn something into a Prince of Fairies, which creates immediate threat for the future. And the amount of pushes you have and the ways to get there ends up weaving through the interruptions of your opponent pretty well. For example, you can still fuse even if you're booked by, say, a Snow. Luna bouncing ends up getting you more resources in graveyard sometimes. Because people are on different ratios, it's also really hard to know if your opponent's on 2 Weavers, 2 Tellers, 2 Wickats, you know, 3 Match Giru, or 2 Match Giru, or 1 Match Giru, or 3 Luna. And so the Luna mind games definitely are a lot more interesting in the mirror as well. Nonetheless, we have a ton of fun games to show you. We got a couple of games in the mirror. We have a really, really cool game against Mitsurugi at the end. But I just wanted to show off all these games and let you all know we're back on Fairy Tail. One final note before we hop into the games is that this weekend I will be doing a 24-hour stream from Saturday, August 22nd at 4 p.m. EDT until Sunday at 4 p.m. EDT. That's 24 hours. So if you're usually a YouTube watcher and want to come check us out live, this is the perfect time to do it. More on that in the thank you at the end. For now, let's get into the games. I decided to start with a Fairy Tail Mirror because I wanted to show off just how complicated this deck can be and how hard it is to navigate the mirror. I think there were some misplays on both sides, but I also think they were completely understandable and really, really difficult to determine what the correct play was. So I decided I wanted to start here to show you all how cool and how fun this mirror can be, even when you get the full Fairy Tail board to navigate. So we're going to keep specialing here. We go for Luna into Artemis so that we can use our Bear Magic because this line doesn't spellcaster lock us before we get to Borreload. We're able to attach the Artemis here and then summon these 2 out to go into a Borreload, which gets Mournered. And I go, oh, that's not at all what I was expecting. Nonetheless, we can extend by Tailsing the Artemis and fusing it away with our Match Giru in hand, which lets us special summon the Match Giru back later, but we also get one from deck in order to go for Ball, and then Ball for a Luna. We activate the Tails so that we can summon the Luna. Luna will search out a Snow, and then we can get fusing for a Teller to installate our future plays. Now, with all of this interruption on the board, I feel confident to summon back Match Giru and link off for an Endymion the Crescent Magistus using our useless Borreload and taking 3k in the process. Artemis here will add Spenta. Spenta will search out Crowley. Crowley will summon out and get fusing. I'm never exactly sure when to use the Crowley Fuse versus when to use it as a body and then summon it back, but here I knew we had the extra body here to go into Chorozo, and this will let us go into a Wiccat. Wiccat will bin to, it makes sure it gets the Once Upon a Fairy Tale engrave, but we accidentally sent a ball because I just forgot how many names we'd been through and we just didn't have any left in deck. We summon out a Snow to send out the Chorozo. This is important to get the Wiccat engrave. The Wiccat needs to be engrave if you can get her there, and it was worth 7 banishes from Snow as far as I was concerned. Plus the Chorozo lets us send it for the Zoroa effect, which can matter as well if we're trying to keep him on the board. Even though I think it's generally correct just to send him anyway. So the Regulus comes out and hits the field. When it activates, I decide to Zoroa it because I'm trying to keep them off bodies on the field, especially after seeing that Spenta. Because now I know any body on the field becomes an Artemis search. So I'm very aggressive at trying to take out the Crowley, but they have the quick play spell in hand anyway, so they're able to get to their Magistus cards no matter what. We ball the Relona, so they can't get a second quick play at least, so they can't get to Zoroa. They attach this with Artemis, and I go, okay, I can't let them search the Zoroa, so we're going to flip over the Snow in order to book the Relona. Now they normal summon the Luna. I'm like, what a hand. Lunaing here from me is definitely a misplay. I know for a fact that they have a second Luna in their deck. It's like, am I hoping that it's in their hand? Like, they may even have 3. So this is just me clicking buttons and definitely not correct in any sense of the word. I don't even know why I did it. I am very scared of this Luna. Once they search Match Guru, because I have 1850s, they can summon it out no matter what. But nonetheless, that's no reason for me to click that button. I'm also scared because that Luna threatens the Snow, and sending the Snow to our graveyard was our last point of interaction. But when they use the Luna here, I go, thank goodness, because they could have used the Luna to keep this Snow pinned the rest of the game. I could not Wiccat this Snow until Luna targeted it. Because if I tried to Wiccat to summon back, they just bounce the Snow and I never get it back from hand. But because they Luna'd it first, I'm able to Wiccat, send it to the graveyard in order to dodge the Luna bounce and get the Snow back. So I am thanking my lucky stars that they decided to do that, because now not only can we make this a Prince of Fairies, we can keep Snow engrave. Now I turn this into a Prince of Fairies, and then I see the Super Poly, and I go, wait, my entire board's going to be a Teller. But it can't be a Teller, because Teller needs 1 light Fairy Tale monster plus 1 spellcaster, and this isn't a light Fairy Tale monster, and this is protected by Wiccat. So they cannot go into Teller here to explode my board, meaning all they can do is go into a Weaver. I'm not sure whether or not they do that, but either way it works out for us because we get to summon Snow back and book the Weaver. Our last unknown being Ghost Spell here is really useful because it stops the Matchgiru from extending, and even though they do get to go into a Chorozo with their sets and search now with the Artemis, they have already used their normal, so they can't go Zoroa and their Crowley special, so it's not that scary. They do go into Wiccat, and they're able here to send Tails and Snow, both of which are great extenders, and I'm a little bit nervous here that they're going to be able to push for lethal, but they just book our Luna, and then Tails, they fuse away with their last in hand in order to go into a Zoroa, the Magistus Verathraga. They steal our Teller, and then battle in, clearing our board. And I'm like, you know what? This isn't that bad. They pass back to us, and I'm thinking that this is what, an Omni and a Pop plus Snow with Wiccat. So what we do here is we steal their Zoroa, they go to negate, we activate Vare Magic in order to bring out the Vare, they pop our Once Upon, but we're able to add Vare Magic Lacrima of Light, and I'm feeling okay. The Matchgiru comes back, and we're able to turn the Fairy Tale Snow into a Prince of Fairies, fuse off with it into a Weaver, and now the game is over. I'm not sure whether or not they were able to Wiccat back the Snow once it had become a Prince of Fairies, and so I think they were holding on it so they'd get a Snow negate, but once we Prince of Fairies did, if they tried to, you know, bounce it with the Snow, we would have just made the Wiccat the Prince of Fairies and fused off with it anyway. So a really tough position for our opponent there. A couple key moments that may have swung the fate of the game either way if I had been a little more patient with my Luna, if they had been a little more patient with theirs. But either way, a really, really intense and well-played game, and a crazy amount of pushes into that full Fairy Tale board from our opponent. Now that game against our opponent was so good, I thought, you know what? Let's run it back. We bounced into the same person again on ladder. We did win the coin again. I'm so sorry. But our hand is much worse this time. So let's see if things go any different. We start with a normal summon of Valor. They Fua. We're able to Ash Blossom. And all is looking well. We can go into an Artemis here for the Magician's Moon Maiden to turn on our Bear Magic, sending the Jenny, and now we are, as it goes, off to the races. We summon out a Zoroa, the Magistus of whomever, in order to add Spent to the Magistus Sealer. They're going to droll us here. And I'm like, okay, well, we can chain Bear Magic at least. Summon out a Crowley, but we don't fuse. We go into Chorozo here, going into Wiccat to get into our Fairy Tail plays. We send 2, bidding a... bidding a Matchgiru and a Tails, bringing back the Tails in order to fuse off into a Weaver, which lets us at least get to a Borreload. I still think this probably should have been a Teller play, but so it goes. We activate Spenta here in order to tag back the Borreload, then Matchgiru to summon back because it doesn't matter if we're Spellcaster locked, going into Chorozo for Endymion the Crescent Magistus in order to reattach our Crowley to fuse on our opponent's turn, and now this is Luna Bounce, fuse into Zoroa, Omni Negate, Ghost Spell as always, and Wiccat in Grave. Not as good as last time, but maybe it's still okay. They normal summon Crowley and then use Bear Magic and then their second Bear Magic, so we both had 2 Bear Magics. They still get the Jenny engraved, but we get to Crowley now and fuse off with our Spent Borreload to go into Zoroa. Now they Jenny, but we can negate it and then also pop the Crowley on their field. Even though the last card in their hand is Ball, I'm thinking we're still probably okay. Matchgiru comes out, grabbing the Tails, which they decide to equip to our Zoroa, so they can't bounce anything with Luna, and they go off into a Teller of Fairy Tales. This will explode our field, but we're gonna try to get something out with the Luna bounce. It ends up not working. They pop the Luna, but we bring back Wiccat, which only gets destroyed anyway. They go Battle Phase for 1850, and they pass back on a Special Summon Negate and an Omni Negate. And here is a difficult situation to navigate. We have 2 unknowns in hand. They have an Omni and a Special Negate. We have Wiccat Engrave, Matchgiru Engrave, and they have an 1850 on the field. Now, I have a theory here that if Teller had gone into an Artemis, we would have no plays. Which means that that might have been the best play to do there, because as it stands now, we have a Matchgiru that is Wiccat protected. Kind of. They can still negate it, of course, but they can't ball it, is basically the idea. So we bring back Matchgiru and activate the effective Matchgiru for our ball. A hard choice. I know, it's like a difficult choice. They decided to negate the ball, but at this point, it's a little bit too late. We turn that into a Prince of Fairies, and that's the game. I think they needed to pop our Matchgiru there, but it's a tough choice either way, especially when we had 2 unknowns in hand, and with those 2 unknowns, who knows what would have happened. But once again, some really interesting events in the Fairy Tail Mirror, where every decision kind of did matter. And really, really huge shout out to 4J Friend, who we bumped into a couple times. These duels were really fun. They never scooped until it was absolutely over, and I think they piloted the deck really well. Now we have some non-Fairy Tail Mirrors to show you, but these games were absolutely insane, so be sure to stick around. So this is a game against Mitsurugi, one of the most nasty end boards you can go up against in the game, and we have a pretty gassy hand, so I decided to give it a best shot. Here comes a pre-prep, and I'm like, all right, well, like, that's not... we can manage that maybe. Like, maybe that's beatable. They go Saji for Ritual. Ritual is going to tribute off the Kusa from hand and Aramasa in order to summon out Murakumo, and now anytime we would, in theory, interact with them, they can force us to discard, but it doesn't really matter. Murakumo isn't the worst against Fairy Tail, because Matchgiru is about as useful in Graveyard as she is in hand, so, like, it's never that big a deal. But you're still not happy about it, of course. It's never good to go down on card advantage. So they tribute off the Murakumo, they summon back the Habakiri, and here is, you know, where I turn to chat and say, anybody read any good books lately? Does anyone have a nice long story to tell while we watch this movie play out? But nonetheless, I'm actually happy that Mitsurugi is still in the meta. I know it's like a really hated deck. It's one of my most hated decks as well. But it's nice that like a Ritual deck still has legs, right? I think that's kind of nice. So they had an IP Futsu Murakumo, set 3 and pass, and this looks decently beatable. Whenever Mitsurugi sets cards and you're not sure what they are, Purification is always a good bet, Impulse is always a good bet, but the third one is unknown to me. Prayers is still in their graveyard, and I'm like, what could that be? We didn't see them search it as far as I know. Either way, it's in the back of my mind, but we're just going to do our best here. Regulus off the top is fantastic. We reveal our Match Giru because I'm planning on discarding it. We summon out the Jenny and then pitch our Match Giru. The reason we went for Jenny here, just to let you in on my thought process, is that if they explode the board while Jenny is on it, I am able to still get value. So that's why I went for Jenny rather than like Zoroa, who is just explosion target. So we add Endymion to hand. They Kusa back the prayers, of course, not activatable till next turn, if we get there. We go Endymion. They go F and V, and I'm like, wait, the last card was F and V? Oh, that's a disaster. So I decided to tribute off with a Jenny to go for a Vare to get another Vare Magic Lacrima of Light in order to extend further when we can. We go into Artemis here, and then they go into SP, and I'm like, that's... Like, we knew that was going to happen. We activate Vare Magic Lacrima of Light to bin a Snow while we control the Magistus monster, just in hopes that it lets us extend later. And now we bring out Spenta, who is another card that'll give us graveyard value. So now we can activate Genia targeting the Futsu. They can keep summoning stuff back. That doesn't matter so much. But once we Spenta here is a big misplay. Before Spentaing, we needed to activate Match Giru's effect to summon back. Now, you'll see in a minute that I don't think it mattered because we're assuming one of the set cards is Puri, and we're assuming one of the set cards is Impulse, which means they have 2 negates left, and even if we tried to bring Match Giru back, you'll see that both of them would have just gotten negated. We go IF, they go Impulse, and I go... if I'd played properly, I was 1 interruption shy. I was like 1 action short of being able to break the board, which, you know, is still a ton, still feels crazy, and they might have had hand traps we didn't know about, but without that misplay, we were 1 action away from winning. With that misplay, it ended up being 2 actions, but look at how close we got. I don't know, I think people think of this deck as like a going first merchant, but it has so much power going second, even without hand traps, that I wanted to show off this almost win. And next, I want to show off a game where maybe we even break through. And in our final game of the day, we are dueling against Orcust, and we've lost the coin, but we lost most coins. That's just kind of like our thing these days. Even if we did win both coins in the Fairy Tale Mirror, we're ignoring those. So, we start here, and I see a Harp Horror come out. I'm like, where do you even Valor this deck? I decide to Valor the Link 2, and I think that ended up being an okay strategy, but maybe not actually what I should have done. They bin the trap here, and we go Galatea. We see Galatea, they shuffle back. The reason I decided to Valor it, even while seeing their trap engrave, is that many times the Orcust players have set the one that lets them draw 2 cards, and I was like, it's probably worth Valoring a Pot of Greed, even if they're not setting the Omni. So they summon out Nightmare, and they do what rest of the combo they can. Barricade Board Blogger gives them a discard for the Symbol Skeleton before they go into Enlil Girsu. Now, Symbol Skeleton's going to pitch out. They're going to grab the Galatea, and then we're also going to grab back the Omni, which we're going to have to deal with as part of the M board. They go into Ding to give their board destruction protection, and then, of course, they can resummon it on their opponent's turn before passing back to us, setting what I assume is also an Impulse. So here they have, of course, a Steal, an Omni, a Summon Negate, and then Ding resummon if the Symbol Skeleton is able to summon it back under Babel. And we have a ton of pushes. They, of course, have 1 card left in hand. We have no idea what it is. But I'm looking at this hand and thinking, this is probably possible. I want you to see our draw. Our draw is a Luna, which is fantastic, and think what you would start with and what you would do given these circumstances. We start with the Spenta. We go Spenta for Crowley. Crowley summons out. We're just hoping to bait things, and one of the things that we can bait, of course, is the Impulse. They start doing Nightmare and Orcust shenanigans. They send a Sirius, which comes back and is now a pop. We decide not to fuse with the Crowley. I give it the Ninaru to pop the back row, and when they go to pop our Crowley, we go for Lacrima, and they Ash it. I'm like, dang, I was really hoping that would eat an Impulse. They decide to Crescendo our Ball, which ends up being really nice. I'm actually quite happy that they ended up ashing our previous one, because this negates activations, and Ball can only be activated once per turn, which ends up giving this matchup some legs for Fairy Tale. We go for Luna, and they decide to steal it, and instead of bouncing, I say, sure, it's still an 1850, it's still on the field, I'm allowed to match Giru. They go Impulse, and I'm like, great. Uncontested IF, this should be the game. We go Weaver here. Weaver's able to summon back Matchgiru. Matchgiru can grab us a ball, and we can turn Ding into a Prince of Fairies. Now, because Weaver is on the field, it's all the spellcaster. It's currently not, but we'll get there. We send 2 for Snow and Tails. We activate 4 Luna. Then we can extra normal out the Lunar, who can add to our hand a Genia, who can turn the Prince of Fairies into a spellcaster. Now we can fuse off with the Prince of Fairies. They go to bounce our Genia. And I'm not sure why they didn't try to bounce the Wiccat, because it would have worked. Like, I was trolling. If they bounce the Wiccat, I think I lose. I should have just put Tails on something I owned multiple copies of, or better yet, one of their monsters. Not that that was a thing that would have worked out for us, but I think they had the game here. Either way, we go into Teller. Teller nukes their whole field, including the Babel, and that's just the game. Kind of a fun one, definitely contingent on some misplays, but we were able to play through like 6 or 7 pieces of interruption with Fairy Tail, and it was really cool. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to reiterate again, this weekend we'll be doing a 24-hour stream. I'm going to throw up a graphic for it next episode, so tomorrow's video will have more information. Definitely be sure to check it out from 4 p.m. EDT on Saturday to 4 p.m. EDT on Sunday. We're going to have a bunch of fun guests on. We're gonna play a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh themed party games. You're gonna get to see me duel. We might do some variety. There's just so much still to do. And so if you've been watching my content a long time on YouTube, definitely be sure to come say hi and let me know that you're from here. All right, see y'all in the next one. And before I go, I would be remiss, of course, not to thank all of my channel members, but to give a special shout out to our shout out tier members, Tealbeard and Marco1504. If you've been enjoying my content and want some videos early, or just want to support the channel, be sure to check out the membership link in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a great day, week, night, evening, month, year, whatever. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.